The stage was set for a familiar kind of global spectacle. The 2025 Earthshot Prize Award Ceremony, hosted in the vibrant, sprawling metropolis of Rio de Janeiro, was a dazzling confluence of technology, celebrity, and hope. Under the iconic, sweeping arches of the Museum of Tomorrow, with the lights of Guanagara Bay glittering in the background, the world tuned in to celebrate the brilliant innovators shortlisted for the most prestigious award in environmentalism. The air was thick with anticipation, a shared sense of urgency tempered by the glamour of the occasion. Then, Prince William, the Duke of Cambridge and founder of the Earthshot Prize, took the podium. Dressed in a dark, sustainable suit, he smiled at the applauding audience. He began, as expected, in English, acknowledging the dignitaries, the partners, and the people of Brazil for their warm welcome. His words were polished, his tone earnest and committed. And then he paused. He looked out beyond the teleprompters, making direct eye contact with the sections of the audience filled with local climate activists, community leaders, and young people. "E agora," he began, "gostaria de falar diretamente ao coração do Brasil." And now I would like to speak directly to the heart of Brazil. The auditorium for a fleeting second fell into a stunned silence before erupting into a wave of rapturous applause and cheers. For the next 3 minutes, Prince William did not simply deliver a translated version of his speech. He spoke to Brazil, for Brazil, and with Brazil in its own soul language, Portuguese. He spoke of the força da floresta amazônica, the strength of the Amazon rainforest, not just as a carbon sink, but as a living, breathing entity central to Brazilian identity and global survival. He referenced the sabedoria dos povos indígenas, the wisdom of the indigenous peoples, framing them not as victims, but as the essential guardians of a knowledge system the world has recklessly ignored. His sentences were not grammatically flawless. They carried the weight of a learner, of someone who had made a conscious effort to bridge a divide. This was not a patronizing nod, it was a profound gesture of respect. In that moment, Prince William did more than announce award winners. He dismantled a long-standing paradigm of top-down, Anglophone environmentalism and planted the seed for a new, more inclusive, and more effective model of global climate leadership. This article will explore the profound resonance of that single act of linguistic and cultural empathy. We will deconstruct why this moment was not merely a public relations success, but a strategic masterstroke that recalibrated the very essence of the Earthshot Prize and offered a blueprint for 21st century diplomacy. We will journey through the power of language as a tool of genuine partnership, the critical necessity of decolonizing the environmental movement, the strategic importance of Brazil in the global climate fight, and how this royal dialect can become the foundational language for a future where saving our planet is a conversation, not a lecture. Chapter 1. Beyond the Teleprompter, the Anatomy of a Gesture. To understand the impact of Prince William's words, one must first understand what they were not. They were not a hollow translated soundbite inserted for local flavor. The preparation and intent behind those 3 minutes reveal a deep strategic and empathetic calculation. The element of surprise and authenticity. In a world of meticulously managed royal communications, any deviation from the script is significant. By switching to Portuguese, Prince William broke the fourth wall of formal diplomacy. He moved from a pre-written, globally broadcast statement to a direct, intimate conversation. The slight hesitations, the careful pronunciation, far from being flaws, were assets. They broadcast effort. They signaled that this was not the work of a slick translator, but the result of personal dedication. This authenticity cut through the noise of the event, making the moment feel human, unrehearsed, and therefore deeply credible. The vocabulary of empathy, not just environment. The words he chose were telling. He did not just say Amazon rainforest, Floresta Amazonica. He invoked its força, strength, and its espíritu, spirit. He spoke of sabedoria, wisdom, rather than just knowledge or practices. This is the language of connection, of understanding a subject not just through data points of deforestation and carbon sequestration, but through its cultural and spiritual significance. He was speaking to a dimension of the climate crisis that is often ignored in Western discourse, the emotional and cultural loss that accompanies environmental destruction. Acknowledging the audience within the audience. Every global event has a primary international audience, the TV viewers, and a secondary live audience. Often, the live audience is treated as a backdrop. By speaking directly to them in their native tongue, Prince William elevated the local participants to the status of primary stakeholders. He acknowledged that the people in that room, the Brazilian scientists, the Amazonian activists, the community organizers, were not just guests. They were the very reason the ceremony was in Rio. They were the experts, the frontline defenders, the holders of the solutions he had come to celebrate. This gesture, therefore, was a multi-layered communication. It was a message of respect to Brazil, a demonstration of empathetic leadership to the world, and a powerful signal that the Earthshot Prize was committed to a genuine, ground-up partnership. Chapter 2. The Lingua Franca of Crisis. Why English Isn't Enough. For decades, the global conversation on climate change has been conducted predominantly in English. International treaties, scientific reports, major summits like COP, and the vast majority of NGO communications have used English as their primary vehicle. While practical, this has created an inherent power imbalance and a significant epistemological blind spot. The hegemony of the Anglosphere. The dominance of English has often meant that the framing of the climate problem, the proposed solutions, and the very metrics of success are dictated by institutions, governments, and corporations in the global north. This creates a form of intellectual colonialism where indigenous knowledge, local practices, and non-Western scientific approaches are sidelined as anecdotal or unscientific, while Western technological fixes are valorized as the primary path forward. The lost lexicon of the land. Languages are not just collections of words, they are repositories of worldviews. The Portuguese spoken in Brazil, particularly in the Amazon, contains concepts and terms for ecological relationships that have no direct equivalent in English. The knowledge of plant cycles, animal behavior, and forest interdependences is encoded in the language itself. By insisting on an English-only dialogue, the global movement has been trying to understand a complex, localized crisis with a limited and often ill-fitting conceptual toolbox. Prince William's switch to Portuguese was a symbolic rejection of this hegemony. It was an admission that to truly understand and solve the ecological challenges of Brazil, one must be willing to listen in Portuguese. It was an invitation for the solutions to be presented in their native context, for the stories to be told in the language in which they were lived. This act acknowledged that the franca in the lingua franca of the climate crisis can no longer be a single language. It must be a polyglot, collaborative effort where every voice is heard in its own tongue. Chapter 3. The Rio Gambit. Strategic Diplomacy in the Heart of the Climate Battlefield. The choice of Rio de Janeiro for the 2025 ceremony was itself a deeply strategic decision. Brazil is not just any country, it is a geopolitical linchpin in the fight against climate change. Prince William's Portuguese speech was the diplomatic cornerstone of this strategy, acknowledging the guardian of the Amazon. The Amazon rainforest is often called the lungs of the planet. Its fate is inextricably linked to the global climate system. Brazil, as the nation containing over 60% of the Amazon, holds an immense responsibility and power. For years, the international community's relationship with Brazil over the Amazon has been fraught with tension, often characterized by finger-wagging and demands from the global north, which is frequently perceived as hypocritical by Brazilians who rightly point to the historical and ongoing overconsumption and pollution of developed nations. Prince William's approach was different. By coming to Brazil and by speaking its language, he was engaging in a form of soft power diplomacy that respected national sovereignty while affirming global interdependence.